Scorpio. There is a truth you have sensed for your entire life, but no one has ever spoken aloud. A truth that has followed you through every memory, every wound, every obsession, every destruction, and every rebirth. A truth woven into the fabric of your existence from the moment you entered this world. And that truth is this: your life has never operated under the same rules as everyone else's. You have never felt identical to the people around you, and you have always carried a weight, a depth, a darkness, and a strange power that set you apart in ways you could not explain. This difference was not random, not accidental, not a quirk of personality. It was coded into you from birth. Encoded in something as deceptively simple as the last digit of the year you were born. A detail the original document calls the program that has been running your life since the day you arrived. Yet for Scorpio, this code is not merely a program, but a karmic signature. A blueprint of your shadow and your light. A spiritual assignment that dictates the kind of fires you must walk through in order to awaken fully. Where others see coincidence, you see patterns. Where others see chaos, you sense structure. Where others feel overwhelmed, you feel pulled into something deeper, almost fated. Throughout your life, you have experienced cycles repeating themselves, emotional storms that return in different forms, relationships that strike you with unnatural intensity, losses that cut to the bone, betrayals that reshape you entirely. And even when you didn't understand the why, you always felt that these experiences were not random punishments, but part of some invisible architecture guiding your evolution. The last digit of your birth year is the key to that architecture, the hidden map explaining why you love with such fire, why you break with such force, and why you resurrect yourself in ways that even you sometimes cannot believe. Scorpio is the only sign that feels the truth long before it is spoken, that senses change before it arrives, that reads the soul of another before they utter a single word. And because of this instinctive sensitivity, when you hear the idea that a birth year code determines your life's mission, as the original document states, you do not react with disbelief the way others might. Instead, something inside you clicks, something deep and familiar, as though pieces of your life that were scattered suddenly snap into alignment, forming a clear path that you have been intuitively following without even knowing it. You begin to see that you never wandered off course, that your darkest moments were not mistakes, that your deepest hurts were not meaningless suffering, but carefully placed initiations meant to sculpt the exact person you were destined to become. There has always been an invisible force pushing you toward experiences that stretch you, dismantle you, expose you, and transform you. And while others may enjoy smoother lives, calmer phases, easier paths, your soul was never designed for peace without purpose. Scorpio evolves through pressure, through truth, through confrontation, through collapse and reconstruction. And your birth year code explains why your journey has demanded more from you than from those around you. Why you are repeatedly drawn into situations where your strength is forged through emotional intensity. Why you attract relationships that force you into shadow work. Why trust is your lifelong battlefield. And why you must learn the art of letting go again and again until it becomes your second nature. The original document warns that once you know your code, you can no longer pretend you don't know. But for Scorpio, this warning cuts even deeper, because you are the one sign who cannot live inside lies once they've been exposed. You cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unknow what you have learned. You cannot return to ignorance once the veil has been lifted. And when you finally understand the spiritual job encoded into your birth year, you will look back on earlier versions of your life and recognize them not as random chapters, but as the prologue to a story you were always meant to live, the story of a being who descended into their own darkness not to be destroyed by it, but to become its master, The truth is that Scorpio was never meant to fit in, never meant to blend with the crowd, never meant to live quietly or harmlessly. You were born to be the mirror that reveals what others hide, the seeker who walks into the shadows to retrieve the truth, the destroyer of illusions, the guardian of authenticity, the soul who breaks down what is rotten so something real can be rebuilt. And the code hidden in your birth year is the missing piece, the secret that explains which part of the world you were meant to break, which part you were meant to rebuild, which wounds you were meant to heal, and which version of yourself you were always destined to become. Scorpio, this is only the first doorway. When you step forward, your birth code will begin revealing exactly why your soul came here, and what darkness you were born to transform into power. As you move deeper into the revelation of your birth year code, Scorpio, something begins to shift inside you, not abruptly, not loudly, but with the slow, deliberate intensity of a truth rising from the depths. A truth that has been waiting for years for you to finally be ready to see it clearly. You start noticing that the patterns in your life were never random threads scattered across time, but pieces of a single story. A story woven around the energy encoded in the last digit of your birth year. The same code the original document describes as a program operating in your life from the moment you were born. And for Scorpio, this program is not gentle, not neutral, not passive. It is a living current running through your destiny, a magnetic pull shaping your relationships, your losses, your obsessions, your fears, and most painfully, your transformations. The deeper you look, the more you realize that everything you once believed to be coincidences were actually activations. And the more you resist that truth, the louder it becomes. During this phase of understanding, you begin to feel a strange sense of recognition every time one of your life patterns resurfaces in your memory, as though each event you lived through was actually a coded message you were meant to decipher later. Once you had the strength and maturity to interpret it, it becomes impossible not to notice that the intensity with which you have always felt things was part of your design rather than a flaw. That your ability to sense betrayal before it happens, to read hidden motives, to feel energies that others miss, to anticipate endings long before they unfold, none of these were burdens or accidents. They were symptoms of your code awakening. You were not made to float on the surface of life. You were made to navigate its undercurrents. And now that you are finally seeing the architecture beneath your path, everything begins to fall into place in a way that feels both haunting and liberating. And as this understanding grows, another realization dawns on you with a weight that settles deep into your bones. Your birth code has been shaping not only what happens to you, but what you are drawn toward. What you cannot resist even when it hurts. What you feel compelled to face even when it terrifies you. What you are destined to transform even when the process tears you apart. Scorpio is governed by Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth. And so your birth year code does not simply outline a personality type or a life mission, but a karmic assignment that cannot be escaped. Some Scorpios are born to break structures, some to rebuild them, and some to burn entirely so that others may learn from their ashes. And as the document says, once you discover yours, there is no more pretending you don't know, meaning that awareness becomes a demand, a calling, a responsibility you can no longer silence with distraction or denial. This is the stage where reality begins to respond to your awakening. You notice that people who were once close to you begin to drift, not because of conflict, but because your frequency is changing, and they can no longer understand the depth you are stepping into. The conversations you used to tolerate now feel hollow. The roles you once played feel suffocating. The masks you once wore become unbearable. Your spirit begins shedding everything that is misaligned, everything that feels untrue, everything that belongs to the older versions of you. And though this shedding may feel like loss, It is actually preparation. Your code is creating space for what must enter next. Scorpio cannot hold on to both the dead and the living at the same time. Something must be released for something else to rise. At the same time, your intuition sharpens into something almost startling in its accuracy. Dreams become prophetic. Synchronicities multiply. Symbols repeat themselves in impossible ways. You feel watched not by people, but by your own destiny. As though the universe is waiting for you to step into the role your birth code assigned you. This sensation is not paranoia. It is alignment. When a Scorpio moves closer to their truth, reality begins to echo them. You start sensing which path is ending and which is beginning, not through logic but through instinct. Through an inner pull that grows stronger with every passing day, nudging you toward the version of yourself you are meant to embody. And then, without fanfare or warning, a shift occurs inside you so quietly that you might miss it if you weren't so perceptive. It is the moment you stop fighting the life you were designed for. The moment you stop trying to be less intense, less intuitive, less emotional, less transformative. The moment you stop apologizing for the depth that others cannot hold. The moment you stop diluting your power just to make the world comfortable. In this moment, you finally recognize that your birth year code is not a cage, but a map. Not a restriction, but a route. Not a sentence, but a permission slip to live as fully, deeply, fiercely, and truthfully as your nature demands. This is where the transformation begins to accelerate. Once Scorpio accepts their code, destiny begins to move faster. People you no longer resonate with fall away. Opportunities aligned with your true mission emerge unexpectedly. Old fears lose their grip. New clarity rises like a dark sun, illuminating the path ahead, not with bright light, but with a raw, magnetic certainty that tells you, this is who you are. This is where you are meant to go. And Scorpio, once you feel that certainty, there is no turning back. As you move into the deeper layers of understanding your birth year code, Scorpio, you begin to sense a shift that is not merely intellectual but cellular. A shift that seems to rise from beneath your conscious mind like something ancient awakening. Something that has been asleep inside you but listening this entire time. Waiting for the moment you became strong enough to face it. This awakening does not come with fireworks or dramatic revelations. Instead, it emerges slowly, like a memory returning piece by piece. As though your soul is reminding you of who you were before the world tried to shape you into something more palatable, something quieter, something easier to understand. And with each passing day, you feel the subtle dissolving of identities you once clung to for survival, the shedding of roles you were forced into, the quiet death of fears that used to control you. And in their place, you feel the unmistakable rise of something truer, your actual self. This stage of your transformation is marked by an internal unmasking, a process where you start to see with painful clarity the ways you once betrayed yourself just to keep the peace. The ways you dimmed your intuition because others called it too much. The ways you accepted crumbs of affection because you believed depth was a burden rather than a gift. And the ways you swallowed truths that would have shattered the illusions around you if spoken aloud. As this internal unmasking occurs, it becomes impossible to pretend anymore. Scorpio is the only sign that carries a built-in lie detector. And now that your code is activated, the detector turns inward and forces you to confront every moment of emotional dishonesty you practice toward yourself. The discomfort of this confrontation is not punishment. It is purification. You cannot ascend into the next version of yourself while carrying the emotional distortions of the past. Something must die for something more powerful to be born. And as this old self dissolves, you begin to notice the world responding to the transformation in ways that feel almost eerie. People begin revealing their true intentions without meaning to, as though your energy exposes what their words try to hide. Situations that once seemed stable begin cracking at the edges, showing the truth beneath the paint. Relationships either deepen rapidly or unravel completely because the frequency you now emit does not allow superficiality to survive. You may find yourself withdrawing, not out of avoidance, but out of instinct, as though your spirit is guiding you away from energies that can't follow you to where you're going next. These withdrawals are not losses. They are recalibrations. Your code is resorting your life, removing everything that cannot support your evolution and pulling you toward what can. During this phase, you might also feel a loneliness that is difficult to describe. Not because you are isolated, but because you are transitioning between versions of yourself. Standing in the space between the life you are leaving and the life you haven't fully stepped into yet. This liminal space is uncomfortable but essential. Scorpio does not transform gradually. Scorpio transforms through thresholds. And you are standing at one now. The loneliness you feel is not abandonment. It is your soul detaching from what no longer matches your frequency. Even the silence feels different now, not empty, but expectant. As though something on the other side of the veil is waiting for your decision before it reveals itself. And yet, alongside this loneliness, you begin to feel a sense of power that is unlike anything you have felt before. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not egoic. It is a quiet, steady, inexorable force rising from within you. A force that feels ancient and familiar, as though you are reclaiming something you once lost or forgot. This is the Scorpio birthright, the power of self-possession, the power of emotional sovereignty, the power of knowing your own shadow so intimately that the world cannot use it against you. And as this power strengthens, you begin to experience a new kind of clarity, the kind that does not require explanation or validation, the kind that simply whispers, "This is the truth." This clarity is the voice of your code, the voice of the deeper intelligence guiding your evolution. Then, something subtle but monumental happens. The past stops controlling you. The memories that once triggered you lose their sting. The people who once broke you lose their emotional hold. The versions of you that once made desperate choices no longer feel like you. It is as though your entire timeline is rearranging itself from a higher perspective, showing you that nothing was random. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was meaningless. Every wound was an initiation. Every betrayal was a redirection. Every heartbreak was a gateway. Every collapse was a demand for rebirth. The code inside you is not explaining your past, it is claiming it. It is integrating it. It is alchemizing it. By now, you begin to feel that the question is no longer, what happened to me, but what am I becoming because of it? This shift in perspective marks the true beginning of your ascension. Scorpio does not heal by forgetting or forgiving blindly. Scorpio heals by transforming pain into wisdom, fear into intuition, loss into power. And as this transformation unfolds, something extraordinary becomes clear. The experiences that nearly destroyed you are the very experiences that now empower you to walk into the next chapter of your life without fear. As you cross the midpoint of this awakening, Scorpio, the transformation that once felt internal begins pressing outward, reshaping the very atmosphere of your life in ways that are subtle yet unmistakable. And you can feel a shift in the way people look at you, speak to you, react to you, as if your energy has deepened into something they cannot quite name but instinctively respect or fear. You are no longer carrying the same frequency you once did. And this change radiates from you like a quiet storm, not loud, not violent, but undeniable. The kind of power that does not need to be declared because it is simply felt. This is the stage where your birth year code begins interacting with your environment, dissolving what cannot match your new vibration and pulling toward you the situations and souls that align with the trajectory you are stepping into. It is also the stage where clarity becomes ruthless, cutting through illusions you once tolerated, revealing truths you subconsciously sensed but were not yet willing to confront. And with each revelation, your emotional field sharpens, becoming a territory where only authenticity can survive. In this space, you begin to feel something else rising beneath the transformation, a quiet certainty that you are no longer who you were, even a few weeks ago, and that the person you are becoming carries a level of inner authority you once doubted you deserved. This authority does not come from dominance or ego, but from the deep recognition that every experience you endured was preparing you for this exact threshold. And now your instincts are no longer warnings but instructions, guiding you with a precision that feels almost supernatural. And as you step deeper into this emerging version of yourself, the world starts rearranging itself around your truth. Not because you are forcing anything, but because alignment has finally begun. And when a Scorpio aligns, reality has no choice but to shift accordingly. As the final phase of this awakening settles over you, Scorpio, there is a strange stillness that begins to form within your chest. A steady, grounded quiet that feels nothing like the emptiness you once feared and everything like the power you have spent years growing into. And in this stillness, you begin to understand the true purpose of your birth year code. It was never meant to confine you, restrict you, or predetermine your suffering, but to reveal the shape of the soul you were meant to become once every illusion was burned away. You sense for the first time that your past no longer owns you, that the wounds which once defined your identity now feel like distant echoes, and that the versions of you who struggled to survive have finally been integrated into a single, coherent, unbreakable self. In this integration, there is no turmoil, no grasping, no self-doubt. Only a deep recognition that everything you lived through was training, preparation, initiation for the strength you now inhabit so naturally that you almost forget how much pain it took to build it. This is the moment where your code stops whispering and becomes a compass, pointing you not toward the life you thought you wanted, but toward the path your soul chose before you ever arrived here. And you feel an unmistakable shift as your decisions begin aligning with instinct rather than fear, clarity rather than confusion, purpose rather than survival. The world around you responds in kind. Opportunities appear that match your new vibration. Connections form effortlessly. Stagnant doors close without resistance. And the future no longer feels distant but present, unfolding at your feet with a quiet inevitability. And as you step into that future, Scorpio, you finally understand the truth you were always destined to discover. You were never meant to be shaped by your past, only forged by it. And now that you have emerged from the fire, nothing and no one will ever have the power to extinguish your light again.